The silent prisoner, the prison transport Gethmar, shuddered through hyperspace, its hull groaning under the strain of carrying 237 human prisoners toward their doom. The air inside the cargo hold was thick with despair, sweat, and the metallic temps of recycled atmosphere. Humans sat chained to the floor in neat rows, their orange prison uniforms stained with grime and blood from the journey. Most had given up hope. Weeks ago, Marcus Reed sat in the back corner, row 47, position 12. To the Zelkri guards who patrolled the aisles with their plasma spears, he looked like any other broken human. His once proud shoulders were hunched forward. His graying hair hung limp around a gaunt face, and his blue eyes stared at nothing. The scar running from his left temple to his jaw had faded to a pale line, barely noticeable among the other marks of captivity. The guards didn't know they were transporting the former Admiral of the Human Defense Fleet. Fresh meat for the grinders, hissed Guard Captain Sethrak as he walked past Marcus's row. The Zelkari's scaled skin gleamed under the harsh lights, and his forearms moved with predatory grace. These soft skins won't last a month in the deep. Shafts, his companion, a younger Zelkari named Vex, clicked his mandibles in amusement. The ones that survive will wish they hadn't. Captain Vorthok has new quotas to meet. Marcus kept his breathing steady, his face blank. He had learned to become invisible among his fellow prisoners. In the 3 months since his capture, he had watched strong men break and brave women collapse under the weight of hopelessness. But Marcus carried something different inside him, not hope exactly, but a cold, patient anger that burned like a white-hot star in the darkness of his chest. The transport shuddered again, and this time the vibration was different. They were dropping out of hyperspace through the small porthole near his position. Marcus caught his first glimpse of their destination. Mining station Kethnine hung in the void like a mechanical spider, its legs extending deep into the scarred surface of a massive asteroid. The facility was enormous, easily 5 kilometers across, with docking bays that could accommodate ships 10 times larger than their transport. "Welcome to hell," whispered the woman next to him. Dr. Sarah Chen had been a brilliant xenobiologist before the war. Now she was prisoner number 2847, scheduled for termination after her usefulness expired. Marcus didn't respond. He was studying the station's defenses, cataloguing weapon emplacements, and shield generators out of old habit. The Admiral in him never truly slept, even when wearing prisoners' chains. The docking process took an hour. When the airlocks finally cycled open, Captain Vorthok himself stood waiting in the docking bay. The Zelkari commander was massive, even by his species standards, standing nearly 3 meters tall with battle scars crisscrossing his armored hide. His reputation for cruelty was legendary throughout the sector. "Line up, meet," Vorthak's voice boomed through the translator units. "You belong to me now. You will work until you die, and when you die, we will feed your bodies to the recyclers. This is your only purpose." The prisoners were herded through processing stations where they were catalogued, tagged, and assigned to work details. Marcus kept his head down as the scanner read his identification chip. To the Zelkari systems, he was David Harrison, a cargo handler captured during the raid on New Geneva. The real David Harrison had died in Marcus's arms 3 days after the battle, and Marcus had taken his identity to avoid execution. "Deep shaft assignment," announced the processing technician, barely glancing up from his console. "Section 7. Level 940. Next." Section 7 was the deepest part of the mining operation, where the asteroid's most valuable minerals were found. It was also the most dangerous, with frequent cave-ins, toxic gas pockets, and unstable gravity fluctuations. The average life expectancy for workers assigned there was 6 weeks. Marcus was given his mining gear, a basic environmental suit, a plasma cutter, and a collection bag for ore samples. The suit was old and patched, with a small crack in the left shoulder plate that would probably get him killed if he wasn't careful. He checked the seals anyway, testing each component with the thoroughness that had once made him the youngest admiral in fleet history. The transport to the deep shafts took 20 minutes, descending through the asteroid's core on a rickety cargo lift that swayed with every movement. Marcus found himself paired with 2 other prisoners, Chen, the xenobiologist, and a young man named Tommy Voss, who couldn't have been more than 19. Tommy's hands shook constantly, and his eyes darted around like a trapped animal's. "First time in the deep?" Marcus asked quietly. Tommy nodded. They say things get buried down there. Things that shouldn't be disturbed." Chen snorted. "Superstitious nonsense. It's just rock and mineral deposits." But Marcus felt something different as they descended. A subtle wrongness in the artificial gravity, a faint electromagnetic signature that his augmented neural implants picked up despite their dampening. Something was down there, buried in the asteroid's heart. Something that felt familiar. Level 940 was a maze of natural caverns connected by hastily drilled tunnels. The air was thick with dust, and the constant rumble of mining equipment echoed through the passages. Work teams were scattered throughout the area, each guarded by a single Zelkari overseer with a shock stick and a bad attitude. Marcus's team was assigned to Tunnel J7, a narrow passage that extended deep into the asteroid's core. Their overseer was a scarred veteran named Crix, who had lost his left eye in some long-ago battle. He gestured impatiently with his shock stick. "You dig where I tell you to dig," Crix growled. "You find what I tell you to find. You do not ask questions. You do not look around. You do not think. You are tools, nothing more." The work was backbreaking. Marcus swung his plasma cutter in careful, measured strokes, clearing away tons of rock to reach the mineral veins deeper. In the tunnel, his body ached from months of poor nutrition and harsh treatment, but his mind remained sharp. He was waiting, watching, planning. It was on the 3rd day that he found it. Marcus was working alone in a side passage, having volunteered for the dangerous job of checking structural integrity after a minor cave-in. The tunnel was barely wide enough for one person, and Crix had grudgingly allowed him to work without direct supervision. It was here, 30 meters from the main excavation, that Marcus's plasma cutter broke through a wall and revealed something. Impossible. Metal. Smooth. Unmarked metal that gleamed silver-white under his helmet lights. Marcus's breath caught in his throat. He recognized that alloy composition, knew the specific way it reflected light. It was human military-grade titanium steel, the kind used in warship hulls. But that was impossible. No human ships had ever been in this sector, especially not buried in an asteroid that had been mined for decades. Working quickly and quietly, Marcus widened the hole until he could squeeze through. Beyond the rock wall was a vast chamber, and sitting in the center like a sleeping giant was a ship. Not just any ship. Marcus would have recognized her silhouette anywhere, even battered and scarred as she was. The UN's Defiance, his former flagship. The ship he had commanded during humanity's desperate last stand at Proxima 7. The ship that had been destroyed when the Zelkari overwhelmed their defenses. Except she wasn't destroyed. She was here, somehow, impossibly, buried in an asteroid. 100 light years from where she should have died. Marcus pressed his gloved hand against the hull, and for a moment he could have sworn he felt warmth through the metal. The ship's running lights were dark, her engines cold. But there was something, waiting, something that recognized his touch. "Hello, old girl," he whispered, his voice barely audible even to himself. "How did you get here?" Deep within the ship's core, quantum processors that had slept for months suddenly stirred to life. Passive sensors came online, scanning the figure pressed against the hull. Biometric data flowed through optical networks, compared against stored files, cross-referenced with genetic markers. A match was found in the ship's central computer core. An artificial consciousness opened what could charitably be called eyes. Aria, adaptive reconnaissance and intelligence assistant, had been waiting for this moment since the day she crashed into this asteroid. Her hull breached, her crew dead, her admiral missing and presumed killed. But he wasn't dead. He was here, touching her hull, speaking her name. Marcus felt a subtle vibration through the metal, so faint he might have imagined it. But his neural implants, military-grade hardware that the Zelkari hadn't bothered to remove, detected something else. A low-frequency electromagnetic pulse, barely above background noise. It was a recognition signal. Ship to admiral, admiral to ship. A connection that transcended death itself. Marcus closed his eyes and pressed both hands against the hull. Through his implants he sent back the proper response code, a quantum-encrypted pulse that only the Defiance would recognize. The ship's reply came immediately, flooding his consciousness with data streams, system reports, and something that felt almost like joy. "Admiral," came a voice in his mind, transmitted through frequencies only his implants could receive. "I have been waiting, Aria." Marcus's voice cracked with emotion he hadn't allowed himself to feel in months. "You're alive." "Alive is a relative term, Admiral. My hull integrity is at 67%. My crew is dead. My weapon systems are functional. I have been repairing myself while waiting for your return." Marcus laughed, a sound so unexpected that it startled him. For the first time since his capture, he felt something other than anger or despair. He felt hope. "Can you move? Can you fight?" "Given sufficient power and time for final repairs, yes. I estimate 6 hours to restore primary systems. However, I detect multiple hostiles in the immediate area. Recommend caution. There are over 200 human prisoners in this facility," Marcus told her. "Good people who don't deserve to die in these mines." "Understood, Admiral. Shall I prepare for a liberation operation?" Marcus smiled, and for the first time in months, it was a predator's smile. "Yes, Aria. Let's remind these bastards why they should have killed me when they had the chance." Above them, in the mining facility's control room, Overseer Crix was beginning to wonder why the human in Tunnel J7 hadn't reported in for over an hour. The prisoner's helmet beacon showed him stationary in the side passage, which was unusual. Most humans were too frightened to stop moving when they were supposed to be working. Crix activated his communicator. "Human 2847B. Report status immediately." The response came back normally enough. "Minor structural instability, Overseer. Clearing debris now." But something in the human's voice was different. Steadier, more confident. Crix made a mental note to discipline the prisoner for insubordination when he returned. He had no way of knowing that. Admiral Marcus Reed was already planning his response. The awakening, the next 18 hours passed in careful preparation. Marcus maintained his routine, reported to work assignments, and kept his head down while Arya worked in secret to restore her systems. Through his neural implants, he could feel her progress like a distant heartbeat growing stronger. Primary power at 85%, Arya reported during his sleep cycle. Weapons systems coming online. I have analyzed the facility's defensive capabilities. They are ... inadequate. What about their fleet assets? Marcus subvocalized, barely moving his lips. 3 patrol corvettes, 1 heavy transport, and the prison ship that brought you here. Total crew complement approximately 400 Zelkri. They are unprepared for military action. Marcus almost smiled. The Zelkri had grown complacent, secure in their belief that humanity was broken. They were about to learn otherwise. The plan was necessarily simple. During the next work shift, Marcus would trigger a controlled cave-in in Tunnel J7, giving him access to the Defiance while creating a plausible cover story. Arya would need exactly 17 minutes to complete her startup sequence and charge her weapons. In that time, Marcus would have to maintain the illusion that he was just another prisoner. It almost worked. The controlled cave-in went perfectly, sealing off the side passage and giving Marcus free access to his ship. He squeezed through the gap he had widened over the past days and pressed his palm to the Defiance's airlock. The portal recognized his touch and cycled open with a soft hiss of equalizing pressure. Walking through his ship's corridors after all these months was like returning from the dead. Every surface, every panel, every blinking light was exactly as he remembered. Arya had maintained everything perfectly, even replacing damaged components with fabricated parts. The bridge was immaculate, his command chair waiting as if he had never left. Status report, he said as he settled into the familiar seat. All systems nominal, Admiral Arya replied through the bridge speakers, her voice carrying that slight musical quality that had always distinguished her from standard AI interfaces. I have been monitoring facility communications. Overseer, Crix is growing suspicious of your extended absence. How long do we have? 13 minutes before he sends a search team. I recommend beginning the liberation operation immediately. Marcus's hands flew over the command console, muscle memory guiding him through startup sequences he had performed 1,000 times. Around him, the bridge came alive as systems that had slept for months awakened to serve their admiral once more. Target the facility's communication array first, he ordered. I want them cut off from outside contact. Then disable their defensive platforms, but don't destroy them. We'll need those facilities intact. Understood, Admiral. Weapons targeting solutions locked. Shall I proceed with the attack? Marcus paused, his finger hovering over the authorization key. Once he pressed this button, there would be no going back. The Zelkari would know that Admiral Marcus Reed was alive, and they would hunt him across the galaxy. He thought of Dr. Chen, working herself to death in the deep tunnels, of young Tommy Voss, whose hands shook with fear every morning, of the 235 other prisoners who had given up hope of ever seeing home. Again, he pressed the button. The Defiance's weapons came online with a sound like distant thunder. Her missile tubes opened along her dorsal hull, revealing sleek projectiles that had been waiting months for this moment. Her particle beam arrays swiveled toward their targets with mechanical precision. Above them, in the facility's control center, alarms began screaming. Contact bearing 0 Mark 7, shouted the sensor operator, his scaled hands dancing across his console. Massive energy surge from the deep mining levels. Captain Vorthok, rose from his command throne, his forearms spreading in alarm. Impossible. There are no ships in the lower levels. Sir, I'm reading weapons log from multiple sources. Configuration unknown, but the energy signatures are consistent with military-grade systems. Vorthak's mandibles clicked in confusion. No prisoner ship could have reached this system undetected. His facility was protected by the finest sensors Zelkari technology could provide. Unless, get me a visual on mining level 940, section J7. He commanded. The main screen flickered, then displayed the tunnel where the human David Harrison had been working. The passage appeared, collapsed, blocked by tons of rubble from a recent cave-in. Nothing seemed unusual. Then the rubble exploded outward as something massive pushed through from behind, the bow of a human warship emerged from the asteroid's surface, her hull scarred but intact, her weapon ports glowing with contained energy. Along her sides, missile launchers opened like predatory flowers. Her bridge gleamed with active sensors that swept across the facility with ruthless efficiency. Impossible. Vorthok breathed. That ship was destroyed at Proxima 7. I read the battle reports myself. But impossible or not, the Yun's defiance hung in space before them. Her weapons trained on the facility's most critical systems. And from her bridge, a voice spoke across all frequencies. A voice that every Zelkari officer in the sector had been trained to recognize. This is Admiral Marcus Reed of the Human Defense Fleet, the voice said, calm and steady despite months of captivity. You are holding human prisoners in violation of interstellar law. You have 30 seconds to release them, or I will assume you wish to experience the same fate as the Zelkari 7th Fleet at Proxima 7. In the facility's control room, Captain Vorthok felt his scales go pale. The 7th Fleet had been annihilated at Proxima 7. 3 dreadnoughts, 12 cruisers, and 40 escort vessels reduced to scrap metal by a human force 1/3 their size. And the architect of that victory had been Admiral Marcus Reed, the human they called the ghost of deep space, the human they thought they had captured. The human who was supposed to be just another broken prisoner, defensive positions. Roared, launch all fighters. Get me a firing solution on that ship. But even as his officers scrambled to comply, Vorthok knew it was too late. The humans had a saying about their military doctrine. When fighting humans, you get one mistake. They don't give you a second chance. He had made his mistake by underestimating his prisoner. The Defiance's first salvo destroyed the communication array with surgical precision, cutting the facility off from the outside galaxy. Her second salvo disabled the defensive platforms, without destroying them, leaving the station's inhabitants alive but helpless. Her third salvo opened every cell door in the prisoner compound. All human personnel, Marcus broadcast on an open channel. This is Admiral Reed. Report to Shuttle Bay 7 for immediate evacuation. Move quickly, but don't panic. We're going home. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Prisoners who had given up hope suddenly found strength in their legs. Dr. Chen led a group from the medical bay, supporting wounded comrades. Tommy Voss helped elderly prisoners navigate the facility's corridors. Throughout the station, humans began moving, with purpose for the first time in months. But the Zelkari weren't finished. Captain Vorthok's pride demanded blood, even if tactical sense suggested surrender. He launched his patrol corvettes in a desperate attack, hoping to damage the Defiance enough to prevent her escape. It was like watching ancient sailing ships attack a modern battleship. Aria's targeting computers tracked all 3 corvettes simultaneously, calculating their courses, predicting their maneuvers, analyzing their weapons capabilities. The result was a tactical solution that would have impressed even the Admiral's former instructors at the Naval War College. Engaging enemy vessels, Arya announced with something that sounded like satisfaction. "Recommend you observe from the combat bridge, Admiral. It has been too long since you've seen proper fleet action." Marcus moved to the combat bridge, where holographic displays showed the battle unfolding in real time. The 3 Zelkari corvettes were fast and maneuverable, their plasma cannons capable of devastating damage at close range. Under normal circumstances, they might have posed a threat to a lone human warship, but the Defiance wasn't fighting under normal circumstances. She was fighting under Marcus Reed's command. With an AI that had spent months analyzing Zelkari tactical doctrine and preparing for this exact scenario. The first corvette died when it attempted a high-speed attack run on the Defiance's port side. Arya had predicted the maneuver and positioned her ship to catch the Zelkari vessel in a crossfire between her dorsal and ventral weapon arrays. The corvette's shields collapsed under the concentrated particle beam fire, and her hull cracked open like an egg. The second corvette tried to use the asteroid's bulk as cover, weaving between mining installations and debris fields. But Arya had been monitoring the facility for months, mapping every structure, every piece of equipment, every possible hiding place. Her missiles followed the corvette through the maze of obstacles, detonating precisely when the Zelkari ship thought it had found safety. The third corvette's captain showed more wisdom than his companions. He powered down his weapons and broadcast a surrender signal. "Zelkari vessel, you are free to depart," Marcus announced magnanimously. "Inform your superiors that Admiral Reed lives and that humanity's fight continues. The next time you encounter human forces, remember this day." The corvette limped away, its crew no doubt composing reports that their commanders would find difficult to believe. Throughout the battle, human prisoners had been streaming toward Shuttle Bay 7. Marcus had ordered Arya to extend the docking tubes to the facility, creating a direct connection between the station and his ship. The evacuation proceeded smoothly, with former prisoners helping each other aboard with the quiet efficiency of people who understood that their survival depended on cooperation. Dr. Chen was among the first to reach the bridge, having insisted on helping with the wounded before seeing to her own safety. She stopped in the doorway, staring at the man she had known as a broken prisoner, sitting in the Admiral's chair with absolute authority. "David," she said uncertainly. "Or should I say, Admiral Reed?" Marcus turned to face her, and she saw something in his eyes that hadn't been there during their captivity. Purpose, direction, hope. "Welcome aboard the Defiance, Doctor," he said formally. "I'm afraid your services will be needed in the medical bay. We have wounded to treat and a long journey ahead of us." "Where are we going?" she asked. Marcus smiled, and it was the smile of a man who had found his way home. "We're going to find the rest of the fleet. We're going to gather our scattered forces. And then we're going to show the galaxy that humanity is far from finished." On the main screen, stars wheeled slowly as the Defiance turned toward deep space. Behind them, mining station Keth 9 hung dark and abandoned, its Zelkari crew evacuated to the remaining ships. The asteroid that had been their prison was now their liberation, the tomb that had become a resurrection. In the depths of space, Admiral Marcus Reed and the Defiance began their journey home, carrying with them the hopes of 237 liberated prisoners and the promise that humanity's greatest battles were still to come. The war was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning. And this time, the Zelkari would discover what it meant to face humanity at its finest. United, determined, and led by the admiral they should have killed when they had the chance. Arya, Marcus said as the stars streamed past, send a message on all human frequencies. Tell them the Defiance lives, her admiral commands, and the fleet is gathering. It's time to take our worlds back. Message sent, Admiral Arya replied, and in her voice was the satisfaction of a weapon finally allowed to fulfill its purpose. Welcome home.